Hello and welcome to Digital Marketing This Week. It is episode number 46. We're actually going to cover WordPress, Twitter, and some live chat in this week. We're going to be going into an old school format for us too. We actually started DMTW with this little recap of the news to kind of help everybody stay up to date on what was going on, because it's kind of hard, at least from my perspective, to keep up to date. And we're putting as much as we can over at Seriously Simple Marketing. Of course, is the blog, so you can feel free to join us over there at SeriouslySimpleMarketing.com. Real quick recap, if you are not familiar with who I am, my name is Chris Mercer. I'm all about analytics and optimization. That's pretty much what we spend our days doing. And of course, the content developer for Seriously Simple Marketing and your host. And yes, you just call me Mercer. All right, so if you have not yet joined the Digital Marketing This Week Insiders, make sure you do that. Just go to SeriouslySimpleMarketing.com. You will see an obvious place to sign up. At least I hope it's obvious. And then you'll get private invitations so you can join us live for these, because we do like doing these in front of a live audience. You can ask questions about the topics or just other marketing things that you've got going on in your own business, whether it be about analytics or landing pages or conversion, doesn't really matter. We just like having a live audience. So that's kind of special that we do for the insiders. And of course, if you are an insider with the audience, just go ahead and if you have a question, ask in the live chat, and we'll handle that after the content portion of today's show. Let's go ahead and get started. And the way that we're going to do this, I'm going to go ahead and bring up the things that we're covering in this week's episode. Now, when it comes to updates, and specifically around WordPress, we delay everything. We just have a rule here where if it's a major update, which in this case is when they go from 4.2 to 4.3 or 4.4, those are updates that we don't really jump on that quickly. Major updates where they go from 4 to 5 to 6, like those for sure we don't. We let those cook for about 3 months. But in this case, it went from 4.2 to 4.3, and there's just a whole bunch of new features that came out. And we're glad that we didn't update right away, because there were some things that were broken. There were some plugins that didn't work with 4.3. There were some themes that didn't work with WordPress 4.3. We use Digital Access Pass, and Digital Access Pass, because of their integration, had to adjust something because of the way that WordPress actually changed how they did something. It was a very fast patch, but it was kind of nice. This is why we didn't upgrade right away. So if you have not yet upgraded, and this came out right around the middle part of August, so it's only been a couple of weeks, we've just now started migrating, right? We've gotten through the initial patches, and we've migrated now our sites, and we have found it to be okay. All the patches that initially everybody was sort of maybe caught off guard with were fixed, and everybody's updated, and so we're good to go. So now we need to talk about Billie, and that's what they're calling WordPress 4.3. So if you have not yet updated, here's kind of what you have to look forward to. And I'm going to scroll through this. Of course, at this point, I'm going to make the screen a little bigger so everybody can see it here. But what we're looking at is some changes, some pretty major changes they made actually in this particular version. So you've got menus have changed a lot, and you've got this custom menu thing that you can do now. So they've got what they call the customizer. So you can basically make new menus and preview what they're going to look like. And what's really interesting is that this has really become mobile oriented. So they're trying to make it, and I don't know how feasible this is, to be honest. I've never felt like creating a post on my phone, but we write a lot of long form posts, and there's images and everything else. But if you're just kind of doing like that Twitter type blog post or a Tumblr, maybe this works out better. So WordPress is really trying to push toward, we want it easy to use on a mobile phone. And again, not just from the site's perspective, which is controlled by your theme, so the user end, but on the back end, right, on the dashboard, where all we are creating this content. So this is just an example of what it looks like and pushing it mobile. The other thing is formatting shortcuts, right? So they've gone through and they've created shortcut formats where you can just do, and you can see kind of video that's playing here on the screen, you can do real quick keyboard shortcuts. In this case, I do this little hashtag. It's a formatting shortcut. That automatically means do H2 tag or an H1 tag. If you do a dot, or I'm sorry, a dash or an asterisk, it becomes a dot, little bullet point. So things like that. If you're a writer, you're doing a lot of writing, it keeps it a little bit easier. Of course, you've got site icons, so you can do tabs and bookmarks, kind of like the favicons, essentially, is all that really is. So you've had to replace those out with little favicons based upon the themes. A lot of themes do this for you automatically, but now they're starting to import that. Better passwords, check that out. So you can actually do much better passwords. This is what messed up a lot of those integrations. So if you have a plugin like we did with our membership site plugin, Digital Access Pass, that integrates with the WordPress database, and we were syncing. We sync between the members database and the WordPress database. And WordPress changed how they handle passwords in this little section, which is fine. It's better that they're doing it like this, but it does mess up sometimes those other programs. And so there's really quick things that those people had to do to adjust things, which is, again, all taken care of, which was awesome. So the digital access developers are on top of it, as they have been for years, which is why we use them. But on and on, and it's something to take a look at now. So you can turn off comments on pages so they don't show up. There's lots of cool things you can do here that you may not have been able to do based upon what your theme was before. And again, these are built into the core of WordPress. This is the core of WordPress. So that's Billie. It's 4.3. It's worth taking a look at. And chances are you have already been notified that you're supposed to be updating it. Now, the difference between this, like a 4.3 and a 4.3.1 or a 4.3.2, those are security updates. Those little ones where they have the 3 numbers. Those are security updates. We always update those right away. I just have never run into a problem where that's ever been a conflict, because it's normally patching something that they need to update for a security purpose. And there was a time actually just a few months ago where they were coming out with those like every 2 days, because it was a big giant hole that they were fixing, and they were doing it in little teeny pieces, trying to make sure everybody's sites were fine, and ours obviously was, and it's because we had those security updates automatically set up to install themselves, which is a setting you can do in WordPress. Probably you already have that on by default, to be honest, because you have to turn that off. But we don't recommend that you do, and I've never run into a problem, and it will not automatically install the big updates, like 4.4 in this case, or 4.5 or 4.6. It won't install those automatically. Those you're going to have to ask it to do. But again, I think for our standpoint, it's relatively safe. We haven't seen a ton of conflicts. The ones that we saw were fixed pretty quickly by everybody. So when in doubt, just take your theme name and Google it with WordPress 4.3, and then you should see some data. If you see a bunch of people talking about how it's not working with a certain theme, stay away. But otherwise, go for it, and just make sure you, as always, you take a backup of your site. So if something does happen, you can restore it. And we use Backup Buddy for that, by the way. It's a really great plugin. All right, so let's go ahead and talk about the next story in digital marketing this week. That's all about some SEO news, and specifically what Google did. So Google just announced over the past week or so, Google is narrowing local search results. So what used to show 7 different results on a phone now shows 3. So now that used to be, you as from a local business perspective, you had to get in the top 7, essentially. Now it's the top 3. Holy cow. Can you imagine the competition for those top 3 spots? So there's a couple of big changes here. One is if you're a local business, you've got to start working on your website, and you have to make sure that you are SEOing everything that you can. So find somebody who knows what they're doing there to help you out and get with SEO to make sure you're doing what you can. The second thing is, and they changed where they used to have phone numbers, they don't. Now they just have like website and directions. And keep in mind, this is Google, and this might change, but there's like website directions. So now you've got how do I get there? And let me go check out their website. So if the website's there, they're not automatically volunteering the phone number, then you are going to have to make sure you've got a really great experience on the website, and kind of understand that when they're hitting your site, they're probably coming from a Google, right? They're coming from a search engine. They have an issue and they're trying to figure it out. So this is why they say here in this article by Business to Community that your website's more important than your phone number now. It didn't used to be like that, right? It used to be like, oh, just give me your phone number, you can call them. But man, nowadays, it's all about the site. So make sure that you're going through and you're optimizing it. One huge thing I can tell you from an SEO perspective is make sure that your site is responsive. That means that it automatically adjusts. When somebody is using it on a mobile phone, the site will automatically adjust to a mobile phone view. When they're using it on a desktop, it'll run a desktop view. So you won't have different, completely different sites for each one. In other words, you don't want a mobile-only site. You don't want a desktop-only site. This is Google. This isn't us. This isn't our opinion. Google has said we recommend responsive. So make sure that you are getting a responsive template. Next up, let's talk about Twitter. So Twitter recently made some changes. They've been making a bunch of changes. They're getting a little more aggressive, and in particular for marketers, right? So those of us in digital marketing, Twitter is now moving to an audience platform, they're calling it. Now this is very different from what they used to do before. They still had this audience thing, and you could do Twitter for business, but now they're moving it to this audience platform. Now here's where we can kind of do a little bit of like, hey, this is good for you to know that it's out there. And I think this is something, I mean, for any of you who've used Facebook, you saw how the ads manager has changed. There's Power Editor, and now it's business.facebook.com, and this thing constantly grows. There's a ton of stuff that Twitter's doing, and they're heading in that direction. So if Twitter figures this out, and I guess I should rephrase this, let's say figure this out with Twitter rather than letting other people figure it out and then you sort of following along. Like this could be an opportunity. If they're really getting good and they're putting the targeting that you can basically do with Facebook but in Twitter, it might be worth a shot, especially if you can do some retargeting and you've got all your pixels firing. So when, for example, you get them to go to, you put out a blog post and you advertise that through Twitter, and you've got your Facebook remarketing pixels so that you can then remarket them offers on Facebook, where it might be a little easier to get them to do a conversion, right? Or even Twitter for that matter. Remarket back on Twitter. Find out which one of those two works. You can do lots of cool stuff with these platforms. So take advantage of it. If you're not advertising on Twitter, maybe it's time to take a look at it because it's a whole new platform. Next up, our friends over at Conversion XL. So this is an article that we found that we actually like quite a bit. So this is about live chat. So you might be familiar with these. These are little things that pop up normally in the lower right-hand corner, or maybe there's a button that says, click to chat with an operator, and then you can do some live chat. Well, that's what this article is basically talking about. So obviously we want you to go through and take a look and get a little more information about it. Conversion XL, by the way, is an incredible blog when it comes to conversions and optimization. So if you are looking for ways to improve your site or just to get some ideas on what other people are doing, this is the one you want to take a look at. So Conversion XL is definitely one that we follow. One of the things that's interesting about live chat that we have found is that if in a perfect world, you've got different conversations happening at different points of the page, right? So you have, and we have lots of clients that use live chat, and it works. It absolutely works. But the best way to use it is to kind of customize it for the experience. So if they're on like the sales page, the product page, they're going to have different questions than if they're on the checkout page. Right? So they're not asking about what size is it on the checkout page. They're asking about what size is it, does it come in this color? They're asking that stuff on the actual product pages. And so it's important to make sure that your live chat is set up on that particular instance, if you can. Not all chat will do that. But if you can do it, that's the one you're looking for. So the other thing to take a look at is making sure that if you're going to have live chat that you keep it on, like you use it, and then it's active. Because I've been to a number of live chats where it's like, oh, hey, no one's here right now, leave a message, and then no one ever gets back to you. And then even if and then you go back to the site, and it's always like that, just kind of always like that, because they have live chat, but they're not really manning the live chat. And this is, again, my opinion, you would test everything, and whatever we say, it's always, our opinion, and here's what we've heard, but always test it for you, because it may not work exactly for you. But with live chat, you would want to make sure that it's manned and active, or just don't use it, because what's the point otherwise, right? So otherwise, it gives you a horrible impression that you're not giving good customer service. And your customer service might be amazing, but it might be all email-based. So if it is something like that, just don't do live chat unless you're committed to doing live chat. If you are committed to doing live chat, have the live chat thing only show certain hours, right? And then be there for those certain hours. Make sure somebody is. Or like I said, just don't do it at all. But it is something that's pretty interesting to use, and people will use live chat quite a bit. So this article goes into a lot of details about it. Written by our friend Alex over at Conversion XL, and again, really great article. Take a look at it. Lots of cool details to help you out, and maybe give us some ideas on using live chat. Next up, our friends over at Digital Marketer. Now we use Digital Marketer quite a bit as well as a reference, and full disclosure, we do some guest blog posts with Digital Marketer too, so we know them pretty well over their team. We help them out with some tag manager and analytics from time to time, which is also pretty nice. But this particular article we thought was nice because we're already covering this thing about Twitter and how, and this week we talked about Twitter. Now this article is a little old, but the fact that it talks about Twitter is what we wanted to sort of combine it for digital marketing this week in this week's episode. So the big news about Twitter is audience, right? So it's this audience platform. Then take a look at this Digital Marketer ad. Go back and take a look at how they're actually using Twitter to generate, because this ad goes into some very specific, here's how you do this, details. So in fact, we've worked with Kim quite a bit on analytics as well when they're setting up. So Kim's a great person to chat with when it comes to social media advertising. And this is how they're tracking everything, and how they're using Twitter. So absolutely take a look at this. Gives you some really great ideas on how you can do it. So the platform itself, I'm going to flip back here. This Twitter audience platform is the actual platform on Twitter. Lots of cool changes there. This one right here, this Twitter traffic machine, this is the one where it's like, okay, now I want to do Twitter. What should I do? Here's your game plan. Go through here, read through this article on Digital Marketer. Again, digitalmarketer.com. I can't even say that. digitalmarketer.com/Twitter traffic machine. And you'll see Kim's article there that she wrote for them. So that's it for this week, right? So that's it for digital marketing this week.